In our long history, there is one unprecedented act of humanity in which every country on Earth came together to protect the future of life on Earth. The Montreal Protocol.
The story of the Montreal Protocol is in some ways also the story of the 20th century. Something that was a great invention, namely a chemical chlorofluorocarbon, had unintended consequences that suddenly became a planetary problem.
It all began with a good idea. In the 1920s, coolants in refrigerators were so toxic that a leak could kill you. So we invented safer chemicals to do the job, CFCs.
The wonder chemicals of the 20th century.
They were so versatile, people's lives were transformed. But in 1974, Sherwood Rowland and Mario Molina predicted that the Earth's natural sun shield, the ozone layer, was being eaten by CFCs at a terrifying rate.
We felt a great responsibility to actually warn society that something could happen.
All eyes turned to the ozone layer. And sure enough, there was an enormous hole in the stratosphere.
It was such a shocking revelation. Over half the ozone layer destroyed above Antarctica in a decade.
If the destruction wasn't stopped, we'd be at risk from lethal levels of UV radiation.
We'd be in dead trouble. We'll have a blind, burnt population.
Faced with this global threat, the world came together to take action. And in 1987, more than 30 countries agreed to phase out the production of CFCs and signed the Montreal Protocol.
Hello and welcome to People on Earth. My name is Makanaka Nyakupanda. In 1994, the UN General Assembly proclaimed the 16th September the International Day for the Preservation of the Ozone Layer, commemorating the date of the signing in 1987 of the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer. This year, the world marked the day under the theme Montreal Protocol at 35, Global Cooperation Protecting Life on Earth. To reflect on the issue and the Montreal Protocol, I have in the studio George Chawumba, the Project Manager, Ozone Unit under Climate Change Management Department in the Ministry of Environment, Climate, Tourism and Hospitality Industry, and Mrs. Farai Melody Banda, Officer for Customs and Excise with the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So often people talk about the ozone layer and it seems like it's a huge word and people don't understand what the ozone layer is. Mr. Chawumba, please tell us, what is the ozone layer?
Thank you. The ozone layer is a fragile shield that is located up in the atmosphere, about 10 to 50 kilometers above the atmosphere. Its main purpose is to protect life on Earth from harmful ultraviolet radiation from the sun. If this ozone layer is depleted, it will allow too much ultraviolet radiation from the Earth. If this radiation reaches the Earth's surface, it will cause eye cataracts, skin cancer, suppression of the immune system in human beings. It will also affect aquatic organisms, plants and animals. The depletion of the ozone layer will also affect synthetic materials such as plastic and rubber and even paint. So that is why this ozone layer is very important.
Okay, so having said that, why is it important for us to preserve the ozone layer?
It is important because if we preserve the ozone layer, it will remain intact. It will absorb most of the dangerous ultraviolet radiation from the Earth, from the sun.
So how does the depletion of the ozone layer occur?
The depletion of the ozone layer is caused by some man-made substances. These substances contain chlorine or bromine atoms. So when they are released from some sectors like refrigeration and air conditioning, they are transported into the atmosphere, where these substances are broken down by intense radiation. Once broken down, they will release the free chlorine atoms. These chlorine atoms react with the ozone molecules, thereby breaking the ozone molecules apart. Once the ozone molecules are broken apart, it means the ozone layer, the shield, will also be destroyed. Once that is destroyed, it will then allow this ultraviolet radiation to get to the Earth's surface.
Okay, so probably we would like to understand what else causes the ozone layer to deplete. I understand you said that the refrigerators and the air cons, but people would want to know what else causes the ozone layer to deplete.
They are actually, besides refrigeration and air conditioning, there are a number of gases that are emitted from other sectors. We can take, for example, in the agricultural sector, where our farmers used to use methyl bromide, for example, in tobacco seedling production, where they were using methyl bromide to kill the pests. So once that methyl bromide is released, it will also get to the atmosphere, where it destroys the ozone. In addition to methyl bromide, there are also other chemicals that are used, for example, halons in firefighting. When people are extinguishing fire using halons, those substances also end up in the stratosphere, where they react with the ozone molecules, destroying. So we mainly in Zimbabwe, we were using these substances in the agricultural sector and also refrigeration and air conditioning. We were also using them as solvents in dry cleaning processes, where they were used to remove dirt. So these are the sectors that were mainly using the ozone depleting substances.
So let's talk about the International Day for the preservation of the ozone layer. People would want to know, what is the Montreal Protocol?
The Montreal Protocol is an international agreement that was opened initially for signature on the 16th of September 1987. So this Montreal Protocol is legally binding to parties of which have signed the Montreal Protocol. Fortunately, all countries of the world have ratified the Montreal Protocol, so it's legally binding to all the countries that of the world. So that is why it is very important, and it helps to control these substances that deplete the ozone layer.
Sure. So any other importance of the Montreal Protocol?
The Montreal Protocol has actually helped to combat climate change, because these ozone depleting substances also contribute to global warming. So by phasing out these substances that deplete the ozone layer, the Montreal Protocol has contributed immensely to the fight against climate change.
Mm-hmm. So are there any other international conventions and agreements that are entered to protect the ozone layer?
In terms of protecting the ozone layer, there is only the Vienna Convention, which actually gave birth to the Montreal Protocol. But in terms of the other environmental issues, there are a number of multilateral environmental agreements that address either the atmospheric issues, land and water issues.
Sure. So how are these conventions binding to Zimbabwe?
Zimbabwe is a signatory to most of these conventions, and like, for example, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, it's binding because it aims at reducing greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. So as a country, we are obliged to control those emissions into the atmosphere through the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chaumba. We shall be taking a short break. Join us shortly. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about the ozone layer and its preservation. Now we are going to talk to Melody on agreements binding to Zimbabwe. Melody, agreements binding to Zimbabwe in terms of the ozone layer. What are your thoughts about them?
Okay. The binding agreements, especially the Montreal Protocol, is an important issue because it obliges all countries which are member states to adhere to the processes and procedures that have been outlined in the protocol. As it is, Zimbabwe has nationalized the protocol, and as an organization, Zimbabwe Revenue Authority comes in the implementation and control of the substances that are controlled by the Montreal Protocol. As such, the country as a member has come up with a statutory instrument, the statutory instrument 131 of 2016. This statutory instrument is mainly in relation to trade in these substances, because Zimbabwe is not a producer of these substances. We mainly import them. So a strategically positioned Zimbabwe Revenue Authority will control the importation of these substances and make sure that we don't have the banned substances being imported into the country.
Sure. So let's look at the phasing out of the hydrofluorocarbon in relation to the Montreal Protocol and the Kigali amendments. What are these?
The phasing out is a strategic way of making sure that we no longer use or produce these substances as countries. So on the phasing out, the Montreal Protocol has put countries into two groups. The first group being the developed countries, and the second group being the developing countries, which are normally referred to as Article 5 countries. Those are the developing countries. So the phase out will depend on whether a country is developed or developing. So for developing countries, they take longer to phase out these substances because of their ability to be able to adopt new strategies and new technologies to replace the ones that we are banning. So these countries are supposed to adhere to their schedules, and they are given timelines within which they should phase out those substances.
Okay, so which are some of the countries which are in the second, like you mentioned?
We have Article 2 countries, which are developed countries. These are mainly what we call the first world.
Yes.
And then the Article 5 countries are mainly the developing countries, yes, which are categorized as developing countries.
The Kigali Amendment gives custom officers a key role in monitoring and controlling the trade in HFCs in Zimra. Is Zimra doing enough to control or manage importation of these substances?
Yes, we are doing enough because we have an instrument to help us control these substances. The statutory instrument 131, which I mentioned earlier on, gives us schedules to follow. The first schedule gives us the banned substances, which are the chlorofluorocarbons, the CFCs. It lists them, so we can easily refer to them, to the list whenever we have substances being imported. We also have a schedule which categorizes greenhouse gases, which are also controlled, and a schedule which gives us the list of equipment that is dependent on these gases. So it is easy for us to monitor and control the importation or trade in these substances with reference to the statutory instrument 131 of 2016.
Okay, you keep on referring to importation of substances. Which are these substances?
The ozone depletion depleting substances, which Mr. Chaumba is reiterated to as the ones that control or protect the Earth's surface from harmful ultraviolet radiation.
So having said that, what measures has ZIMRA put in place to manage prosperity at borders and all ports of entry?
Okay, ZIMRA is alive to the fact that there is corruption. It's also alive to the fact that people may tend to want to smuggle these substances into the country. So we have made sure that we have vibrant, alert officers at our border posts, and also make sure that they can be easily identify these substances, such that when they are faced with the ones that are banned, they will easily identify them and be able to seize them from the owners or the intended importers. And also, for those that are controlled, we make sure that they obtain the licenses from the National Ozone Unit and they comply with the requirements of the statutory instrument.
Okay, so let's look at the awareness and dissemination of information. Mr. Chaumba, what have you done to make the public know about ozone layer?
Thank you very much. We are running a number of awareness campaigns, and these are targeted at our stakeholders, mainly those that import, as she has highlighted. We have also carried a number of workshops targeted at importers of these substances. We have also carried a number of awareness programs on the users of these substances. These are mainly owners of refrigeration and air conditioning appliances. These are farmers who use the methyl bromide. So these awareness programs were intended to actually bring to their attention that these substances are going to be phased out under the Montreal Protocol. They should adopt alternative technology. We have also carried out awareness programs on manufacturers. You know, we have companies that manufacture refrigerators in the country. We also have people who are importing refrigerators. So these are the stakeholders that we work with, and our awareness campaigns are directed towards those people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chaumba. We shall be taking a short break. After the break, we will be talking to Melody. Now we are talking to Melody on the awareness and dissemination of information with regards to the enforcement of a ban on ozone-depleting substances. So, Melody, what levels of awareness building have you agreed in so far?
Okay. Because our organization is all over the country, we have made sure that we have our officers well informed. They understand the substances that are supposed to be controlled. They also can identify them. And they also know the requirements from the National Ozone Unit, that there are equipment that require licenses, and also ozone depleting substances that require licenses. So of late, we have been going around doing trainings from the 26th of June until the 30th of August. We have trained 216 officers in all our major ports of entry. And that has given us a consolation, or rather, we now know that our officers can give out the information that is required, because they've received the capacity building, they've received the information that is required. And as such, in our offices, there are offices that can give out information, the client care offices, where our clients can just walk in, get the information. So we are very sure that our traders can get the information anywhere they can get the ZIMRA offices.
In the event that your officers catch someone with unlawful substances that destroys the ozone layer, what happens to these substances?
Okay, when we encounter importation of the banned substances, we seize them. By seizing, we are saying we are taking possession of them, And when we take possession of them, we don't keep them. We hand them over to the National Ozone Unit, who are responsible for handling them and maybe for subsequent destruction. We don't keep them in our warehouses. And
Mr. Chaumba, what happens to any substance that is found in Zimbabwe that depletes the ozone layer?
Yes, thank you. The Montreal Protocol has created destruction facilities for these substances. By destroying these substances, it means they are completely made redundant, or sort of they will not destroy the ozone layer. So they use high temperature incineration. So we keep them. Once we have enough stocks, then we transport them for destruction.
In terms of enforcing ban on the substances that have been phased out in line with the Montreal Protocol, how has this been consistent with our own laws at local level?
We have managed to nationalize the protocol by coming up with a statutory instrument, and the implementation of that statutory instrument has enabled Zimbabwe to be able to identify the phased out substances, and we are not allowing people to import those substances. Whenever we have people importing those substances, we seize them. Procedure requires that we engage National Ozone Unit and hand over those substances for destruction.
Sure. So, Mr. Chaumba, as we come to the end of the program, what will be your message to our viewers?
Thank you. My message to our viewers, firstly, would be that the scientific assessment panel under the Montreal Protocol has indicated that the ozone layer is on its way to recovery, and that is good news. So what I urge our viewers and the users of these substances to actually adopt technology that is ozone friendly and climate friendly. We are there to work with them so that we make sure that Zimbabwe complies with the provisions of the Montreal Protocol.
Thank you. And Melody, what will be your final remarks to our viewers?
Thank you. We know I want the people to know that the ozone is protected by you, is protected by me, is protected by us. It is important that we all comply. Make sure you get the information that you need before you embark on importation of substances or of equipment that is dependent on the ozone layer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you, our viewers, for watching People on Earth. We have come to the end of this program. Let's all protect our ozone layer. Until next time, do stay safe. I am Makanaka Nyakpanda.